After the formal briefing, we will address questions emailed earlier. Ones submitted during the meeting will be addressed during the meeting or in the chat afterwards. The fire is currently at 76,290 acres and is now 38% contained, with a total of 3,722 personnel assigned to the fire. Starting us off this evening is Operations Section Chief Dave Saldivini.
Good evening. Had a really successful day out there with the rain last night and through the day today. Brought the RHs up, really diminished the fire behavior, giving us opportunity to really get in and do a lot of good work. Right off the bat, in big picture, taking a look at the map, you can see the doubling in containment overnight all occurred around Volcano, Forest Hill, and out the Forest Hill Road here on the northeast corner of the fire. So really got in and did the hard work that needed to be done to get that containment around the communities in this area, which has been a priority the entire incident. As far as what went on the ground today, all along this western edge and up across the northern edge, we continued to mop up as smokes showed themselves, and we got those things put to bed. And then up in this northeast corner yesterday, we had a little push in this area, a few hundred acres burned up, and we were able to get some dozers around it last night, and today able to take off from that dozer line and start bringing that down towards the canyon for the North Fork and the Middle Fork. Got a little too steep and a little too rocky in there for the folks to get any further, but really buttoned this thing up and put it in check, started to mop this up. Coming across the other side of the Middle Fork of the North Fork here, they picked up the fire's edge and started working it down from the south to the north and got some good line around that until again just hit the edge of that river canyon and couldn't do anything more. At the same time, had crews and equipment working south here towards the Middle Fork. Did a little firing operation down in the Middle Fork to kind of button it up down to the inner bay in that area. And on the south side of the river, had some good luck with the fire that squirted around a bit yesterday, starting to get crews in there and start tying that into a line that we had established days before, all around the French Meadows Road, out the power line right away, over to 11 Pines, and down towards McCullough. And so just really good work in there. Lots of people just down in the mud and in the dirt getting that line in. And then from the McCullough area coming south towards the Rubicon, same thing, getting heavy equipment in there, getting people in there with hand tools and working in and getting right up against the edge of the fire, taking this opportunity to tie it into the edge of the Rubicon River Canyon. And then started looking at opportunities to go down into that canyon and come up the other side. And so we're getting a bunch of crews together, weather permitting, we're hoping to get some folks in there in the next few days and start seeing some real progress in that area. And then down, coming along the south, it's been status quo for quite some time, continuing to mop up, patrol, monitor this whole area. Haven't seen movement and feeling really good about that. Thank you. End of report.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate that. Next, we're going to bring our incident meteorologist up, Eric Kurth.
Good evening. This is Incident Meteorologist with your weather report. We have a cool system that's dropped down from the Gulf of Alaska, and that's been bringing, of course, the cooler temperatures, more moisture, and of course the rain itself gradually spreading in from west to east today. And we're expecting those heavier rain bands to come in this evening and then overnight. We could see amounts of a half inch, maybe even more, just overnight into early Monday. Then during the day Monday, we're going to see additional rain through the day, and we could even see maybe a few isolated thunderstorms. And then the rain's going to continue through Monday night into Tuesday, when we could potentially see some stronger thunderstorms. And we do have some concerns at that point that there could possibly be some debris or ash flows from the heavy rain of thunderstorms developing right over the newly burned areas. There's a lot of steep terrain out there, so we have some worries for that. So there's a flash flood watch from noon until midnight on Tuesday. And then when we transition into Wednesday, that system is just still sitting and spinning there, just gradually pushing out. So we'll still see some rain showers through the day Wednesday. And then when it exits, we'll start getting some drier weather on Thursday, start to gradually warm up into Friday. And then by the weekend, we'll still have dry weather and temperatures will be back more into seasonable norms in the 80s over the fire area. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you, Eric. Appreciate that. Next up with fire behavior is our fire behavior analyst, Jonathan Pangburn.
Good evening. Well, as you can see outside, it's been raining a little bit today, and you heard from our meteorologist, we can expect quite a bit more of that in the near future. However, I do want to remind you that we just heard from our operations section chief, Dave, that they were able to do some firefighting out here, including some firing operations. And so I just wanted to remind our folks out there, when it's raining and you're still able to do a firing operation, it just goes to show how critically dry the fuels have been in this area. We experienced record-breaking heat and we had record-breaking dry fuels. So that is the challenge facing our firefighters. The rain, of course, is going to keep the fire relatively in place where it is. We're not expecting any rapid growth. In fact, we're not expecting any real growth of the perimeter at all right now. However, our firefighters still have a challenging job in some very rough terrain to make sure that we get really extensive mop-up and extinguish those heats so that when that temperature does rise and the air starts to dry, as you heard from Eric, that is going to occur starting in this weekend, that we have a safe area that is not going to extend any further. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate that. Next up from Placer County Sheriff's Office, we have Lieutenant Josh Barnhart.
Good evening. We'll start with our evacuation zone map again. We were able to deliver some good news today to our community members. We were able to repopulate zones 8, 9, 10, 11 Alpha, and 7 Boy. But those areas still do remain under evacuation warning. Zones 15, 12, and 26 are completely open. The area of Michigan Bluff, Forest Hill proper still remain under evacuation orders. If you go to our social media, you can click on the map on our social media platforms or placersheriff.org and punch in your address here if you have any questions about repopulation or evacuation order zones. As a result, our roadblocks have moved to different locations. Those locations can also be accessed in our social media. Question about spoiled food. We did repopulate today in the area of Todd Valley, and there were some outages still. In case you do have spoiled food, the Placer County has provided some spoiled food collection sites for today and tomorrow, and that is located at 20895 Todd Valley Road. Again, 20895 Todd Valley Road. Again, keep your heads up. We look forward to the coming days. We are hopeful that we can continue the repopulation process soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Next up from the El Dorado County Sheriff's Office, we have Sergeant Alexander Sori.
Thank you. Hello. I'm Alexander Sori with the El Dorado County Sheriff's Office, and I'm the Public Information Officer. Tonight I'll start with our updated evacuations. We have changed the following locations from order to warning. It's Cannon Creek, Bottle Hill, and Gray Eagle. And the following locations have been changed from warning lifted. So the warning order has been lifted in Cool, Garden Valley, Georgetown proper, and Swansboro. For more information with this, you can research our map at edcgov.us. We have 449 people, 222 structures still under evacuation order, and 955 and 419 structures under evacuation warning. We repopulated 12,589 people today and 5,444 structures. Our current staffing for the 24-hour period was 10 El Dorado County Sheriff's Office personnel, 24 mutual aid for a total of 34. There's currently 110 people in shelters and 258 animals in shelters. There's still a lot of availability if you need it. You can research that info on our website or 211. Also, there's a food distribution event tomorrow, September 19th from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. It's going to be at 6240 Main Street in Georgetown. Thanks to the Georgetown Unsung Heroes and El Dorado County Food Bank for putting that together. Also, that information is available on the county website at the mosquito response information. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant. Appreciate that. Next up, we're going to bring one of our Unified Incident Commanders from CAL FIRE, Dusty Martin.
Good evening, everyone. Dusty Martin, one of the Unified Incident Commanders. So as you heard from my partners prior to this, we have done some pretty significant repopulation today, and is getting folks back into their homes. And as we've talked night after night, that is our number one priority. I do understand that we still have some folks that are still evacuated, and trust me, we are working each and every day to ensure that everybody gets back into their homes. A couple of the factors that go with this is some of the areas that are still evacuated are within the fire's perimeter. And so within that fire's perimeter, there's still hot spots, there's still dangers, there's hazard trees in there, and there's a lot of mitigations that need to go into that before we get everybody back in. But I want you to know we are working each and every day to be able to do that, to get you back into your residence. We're working with our utility partners, with the sheriff's department, and the firefighters out on the ground each day are reevaluating and checking to see where we're at. So I want you to know we are still working tirelessly to get to that. As we saw today, the rain has come in and has impacted the fire area across the entire fire, which that is good in some areas. For us, it dampens our fire behavior, but also it does make it tough for us to get into some of these roads and other things as the rain comes ahead. So we're going to continue. We still have, by our map here, we still have a lot of work to do. And even though it's raining, you still have your firefighters out there on that east side and in through the community, still mopping up those hot spots and still aggressively fighting fire out on that east side. So thank you and have a good night.
Thank you, Commander. Appreciate those comments. You know, it's really important to understand that there's still hot spots out there, and we're not through this just yet, even with the fire being rained on. So that concludes the formal portion of our meeting. We will go into questions and answers. One of the questions we got were regarding the animals that may have been in the fire area. You know, those animals that are out there are very smart. When they know that there's a fire, they can smell it and they run, and they're going to run away from that fire to get away. So we appreciate your concern for those animals, but they can take care of themselves. And we haven't had any reports of animals being injured to any of our firefighters. If we did get those reports, we'd let you know about it. Another concern was asking about the big trees and some of the cultural historical sites that are out there. Tomorrow, look for a video that we'll be producing and putting on our Facebook accounts. Next up, we're going to bring back our sheriff from Placer County Sheriff's Office, Lieutenant Josh Barnhart. Yeah.
There we go. We have three questions. One question, we were just returned home as a part of Zone 11A. There are address markers all along Spring Garden Road wrapped in yellow tape, and what did that mean? For us, that was just to note where we had conducted evacuations, and at least attempted so that our deputies would know which homes had been evacuated. Another question is, what is the status of Zone 4 and its repopulation? Zone 4 is within the fire burn zone. And again, we're working with our Unified Command partners to make sure that area is safe before we can repopulate. And the last question is Yankee Jim's Road open from the Colfax side of the river? I can tell you that the checkpoint was moved. However, it's still at Yankee Jim's at Adam Pitt Road. Yankee Jim's at Adam Pitt Road is a closure. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Appreciate that. Next, we're going to bring back up from El Dorado County Sheriff's Office, Sergeant Alex Sorey.
Thank you. I have three questions here. The first one is, why doesn't El Dorado have evacuation zones like Placer? The answer is every agency does it a little different. The next question is, why can't Volcanoville be repopulated? Also, we need to be informed about PG&E getting our power back on like Forest Hill. Volcanoville, a portion of it has been repopulated. The other portion that has not been is still being worked on by fire personnel, and it's not safe at this time. And then the third question is, what remains to be done so that Volcanoville residents can return home? And that is, they still need to continue working on that area. And that's it.
Thank you, Sergeant. Appreciate you addressing those questions that were coming into the chat and emailed earlier. Next up, we are going to bring back our Operations Section Chief, Dave Saldivini, for some questions he has.
Good evening. Let's see. We'll start with this question. Can you explain why sometimes there are helicopters dumping water versus tankers with retardant? If an area is covered with retardant, does that mean it won't burn, or is it just less likely to burn? Well, In answering this, I think what I'd like to say is the helicopters dropping water are generally going to be dropping water on active fire, and the attempt there is to put that fire out, or at least knock it down, the heat and the spread right there. And we'll use it in hot spots around the area. And the retardant that we're using is usually put out ahead of the fire and try to create a perimeter, so as that fire is spreading, it runs into something, and literally it retards the spread of fire. That's the term retardant. And so those are the two primary applications for those particular tools. Yeah. Okay. Moving on. Okay, this is a question about the maps that are available, and it asks, why does the fire's uncontained edge show further west past the completed dozer hand line? Did the fire jump the line? And that's down here in the American from yesterday's map. It showed a little fire pooching out to the west outside our containment line. And while I can't comment on exactly why that happened, I know that sometimes the cause is we do infrared flights at night to really find out where that fire is and really get it put on a map. And sometimes it'll pick up heat, or there'll be a little variation in the mapping that'll show that type of irregularity. So when we see that in the morning, and we have our initial briefing sometimes at 0530, 0600 in the morning, those are things we'll talk about and identify. And one of our first orders of business is to get out and track down what's really going on there. And with that particular one, we got out there, tracked it down, and there was no escape of the fire past the line to the west. Okay, so next one is, our property is up the Forest Hill Divide Road by Canada Hill 3, by Canada Hill, 3 miles from Robinson Flat, and it burned in the American Hill Fire in 2013. Can you talk about the areas that burned in the American Hill Fire and King Fire, and hopefully how those areas will be less likely for this fire to spread into those areas? We've been learning a lot over the years about fire history, what happens after an area burns, different kinds of severity, from complete stand replacement, everything burning, to understory burns that leave the trees intact. And so while I can't speak specifically to Canada Hill, I don't know exactly where that is, but looking at the fuel conditions out the Forest Hill Road and the American Fire Scar, there's going to be a lot less fire behavior. There's just not the fuels available to burn. The brush in a lot of areas is maybe knee to hip high, sparse in some areas, and so that's just going to be less conducive to extreme fire behavior. And where that brush is at right now in its growth cycle, it's going to take a lot more extreme conditions to carry fire through that brush. So right now, it's a better condition than it will be in, say, 10 or 15 years when that brush starts to grow up. And same over in the King Fire. We're seeing, regeneration in the 8 years since the King Fire, but definitely not the fuel loading we had that led to that fire behavior back then. And then finally, and this is a big one, will the increase of mega fires expected in the years to come, do you think electric fire engines, water pumps, and chainsaws will be as effective and reliable as your current equipment? This person is truly concerned about the phasing out of diesel and gasoline by 2035 and how this could have dire consequences with our firefighters and other first responders. And so the answer to that, and I don't mean to shirk this, is I'm a firefighter. I can't comment on the development of batteries and how that's going to play out over the next 13 years, and whether or not that will apply to fire engines and chainsaws and the other equipment we use. I can say that a lot of folks now are using electric chainsaws, and some of us carry them in our trucks as a replacement for the gas, because this way, if we have it in our truck and we're driving around, we don't have to worry about spilled gas. But if we get stuck behind a fallen tree or something, we still have a pretty useful tool to get it out, and they work real well. So hope that answers your question. It's the best I've got for you. And then follow-up question for this: also, does CAL FIRE provide property fire safety inspections if requested by a property owner during the non-fire season months? And yes, if you want an inspection of your property year-round, all you have to do is go to your local CAL FIRE station, drop in, say hi, talk to them, and they will arrange an inspection of your property and consult with you on what you can do to make your house and your property more fire safe. And that's the end of the questions tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate you addressing those questions. And like Dave said, those are the questions that we received today. We appreciate you sending those questions in. Again, if you have questions, email them to us at 2022.mosquito@firenet.gov. Please submit those questions. We'll answer them at tomorrow night's meeting. We'll be here again tomorrow at 7 p.m. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your attention. Have a good night.